Hi everyone. In this video, we're going to give you tips to helping you design a CRM. Well, I'm going to do most of this example with the most simple CRM software out there, Excel. These principles can be applied no matter what type of CRM you use. Let's get started. All right, let's start with column setup. These are going to be all the variables that I'd recommend you tracking in a general CRM. Obviously, you're going to track different variables depending on the industry you are working in. But for this example, we are going to be tracking things like lead ID or name. We're going to track company name. We're going to track email. We're going to track phone number, lead source, date added, current stage, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a minute, stage date, assigned to, so the person in charge of handling this lead, next action date, and finally a notes section. I want to take a quick moment to talk about something I learned way back in elementary school, and I think a lot of the viewers of this video will relate to this lesson. But I remember early on in social studies class, I learned about the 6 W's, which stands for who, what, where, when, why, and then teachers also would often throw in how. And these are sort of the key questions we need to ask when designing a CRM and setting up stages. The reason that is, for every stage in your CRM, so anywhere between a new lead stage to a warm lead stage to a hot lead stage, there must be all of the 6 W's outlined for the stage on who to complete each task, what gets done in every stage, where it happens, so whatever is happening, where is that occurring, when that action happens, why it even matters to our whole process, and finally, overall, how to execute that action. To illustrate the importance of this, I am going to make an example. So for our example CRM today, we're going to have 4 different stages that a lead might identify with. The first stage a lead will enter in is a new lead stage. The second stage, after it is a new lead and goes through a certain set of tasks or actions, let's say we have to have a discovery call. We scheduled that call. And maybe the third lead stage, after the call is scheduled, of course, we have to actually perform the discovery call. So let's say discovery call completed. And then finally, the fourth lead stage, let's say we already sent a proposal during that discovery call. So it will be proposal sent. All right, now for the new lead stage, let's define who, what, where, when, why, and how we are executing upon the tasks within the stage. So starting with who. For our example, let's say we are delegating this stage, all the tasks within the stage, to our marketing VA, Sarah. She is the one that is going to do this task over and over and over within the stage. It all comes down to her. And for small companies, especially starting out with making a CRM, to reduce the amount of variables you're kind of dealing with or the amount of different people interacting with your CRM, the easiest way to split it up is amongst the stages. So Sarah will take care of this stage. Maybe you have someone else taking care of this discovery call stage. This is just an easy way to make sure the job is done very consistently. So what is being done in this stage is, let's say we need to have initial contact with these potential leads ASAP. Let's say within 5 minutes of them coming into our system, just to ensure speed to lead in order to qualify their budget and timeline. So what are we doing? We are making initial contact via phone within 5 minutes of them coming into our system. Pretty straightforward. Where is this happening? This is happening via phone call. And we also need to make sure the CRM is being updated while the phone call is occurring. When is this happening? Immediately. As soon as possible, within 5 minutes. Because our why is speed to contact. There are countless studies out there saying speed to lead is the best way to get the most sales, especially within 5 minutes of hearing back from a specific contact. This ensures that they're still on the phone or still interacting with whatever piece of software or your website or maybe via text that they came into your system using. So we want to make sure that we're reaching out via phone as fast as possible. And how are we doing this? We're going to use a qualifying script. Maybe we'll also update the lead source. And finally, we're going to schedule a discovery call. So by defining all of these things within our system, what we're doing is we're ensuring that this set of tasks under the new lead stage is going to happen consistently. And while Sarah currently owns these tasks, we should also be able to delegate this to other people. Or with how specific we are being with conducting these tasks, we should be able to eventually automate some of these things within our CRM. That is why we want to be so consistent with how we define the task and the definition of the leads that are in this stage. And finally, I want to note that when our task is completed, so whenever this what is completed within a certain stage, we need to move it on to a new stage. So whenever we complete the initial phone contact, they must be passed to a new stage, such as the discovery call scheduled stage. Or maybe if we've tried this multiple times and they're not getting on the phone with us, then what we should do is pass it to a colder lead stage with its own set of who, what, where, when, why, and how. I paused the video really quick to add an example for us. So let's say we got a lead by the name of John Smith, who works at big company. They came into our system from messaging us on LinkedIn. So upon us receiving some message on LinkedIn, we collected all the information we had on them. Potentially, it's not this whole line, but let's say we have their name, we have the company they work for, and we have a work email for them. That's great. We have some sort of automation set up to add them to our CRM as soon as possible. Again, we want to reach them very fast, within 5 minutes, ideally by phone. So if we have an automation set up that if we have an incoming lead from LinkedIn or from social media or from a form on our website, it should all populate our CRM immediately. Again, we'll program the CRM to automate a lot of these other sections, such as the date added section. Since it's coming into our system as a new lead, it should be categorized as such. Until you perform a set of tasks with that lead, then it should be given to a different stage. So obviously assigned to Sarah. Once Sarah makes this phone call, hopefully today on August 3rd, then whether they pick up the phone and whether they respond to our questions in a certain way, this should be passed on to this next stage called discovery call stage. And obviously, in a perfect world, all of our leads will eventually hop on a discovery call with us. But usually, or more often than not, that might not be the case. Maybe they have objections on that call. Maybe we have to find a better time to speak with them. Maybe we just can't get them on the phone at all. No matter the outcome, we should be passing this lead on to a different stage within our CRM. So that will likely mean having to set up some extra stages outside the ones we previously set up. Or that might mean adding more to our what section. So if they don't get on the phone within the 5 minutes, maybe we have a follow-up task. Maybe we call them later that day and keep them in this new lead stage. Either way, we should be updating this notes section to ensure that whoever is looking at this lead understands everything they need to when getting on this new lead call or getting onto a discovery call, whatever that may be. Another thing worth noting is that a CRM should not just track individual leads within certain stages within the lead pipeline, but it should also track team metrics, such as how is Sarah doing getting on the phone within 5 minutes, or how many calls is Sarah completing, things like that. So every single team member or every single stage within your company should be tracking individual KPIs or metrics. So what a KPI is a key performance indicator. And the best way I describe them is that they are lead metrics that will help you reach the results you're hoping for within your company. So the things that Sarah can control are the amount of calls she is making, the average speed to lead she has, and the percentage of discovery calls that clients are booking. Those potentially are 3 things that are within Sarah's control. What's not in her control is the amount of revenue that your company will make down the line, or potentially things out of her control related to how her teammates are performing, right? But for us to judge Sarah's individual work, we need to come up with these lead metrics that hopefully, if she's accomplishing them, will lead to our overall company success. So let's say you did all this math on the amount of revenue you hope your company will perform to by maybe the end of 2025. And just doing back of napkin math, you come up with the fact that on average, you close 1 in every 100 leads. And with you to be able to do so, Sarah needs to be making X amount of calls a day to hopefully pass along to her partners in this pipeline and get these closed deals down the line. So let's say for this example, we hope Sarah can make 100 calls a day with an average speed to lead of 2.5 minutes, and maybe the percentage of discovery calls booked from this initial call is around 50%. This might be hopeful numbers, but let's say she's able to hit some of these. So let's say she is able to hit the 100 calls. Maybe she did 110 calls in a day, but she struggled to get on the phone this fast. Maybe her average speed to lead was 4 minutes. And then finally, let's say she was still able to book approximately 50% discovery calls. So what these numbers tell me is that she was successful in doing a couple of things, but for some reason, we cannot get the average speed to lead that we're looking for. So maybe in like a weekly meeting, you could talk about, all right, how did we do this week? What sort of KPIs are we hitting? And what sorts of KPIs are we off track for? And you could use like a weekly meeting cadence as a means to problem solving with your team. So obviously, this 4-minute mark is still pretty good, but how can we get better? Let's work with Sarah to figure out how we can get this number down, but also congratulate her on doing a good job with the amount of calls made and the percentage of discovery calls booked. Because by her doing so, we have already proven that if you're able to accomplish these metrics, it should lead to overall success of the rest of the team. Another thing I want to note is that a lot of these sort of manual tasks can eventually be automated. So, especially with more advanced software systems than Excel, maybe you're using Follow-Up Boss or using Go High Level or actual CRM systems that are catered to your type of business. Likely, these metrics will automatically pop up on some sort of dashboard, right? And additionally, even within Excel, there's ways to automate these numbers to show how your team is doing without them having to manually enter it in. Additionally, There should be automations within Excel that you're able to do on your own with just basic research on how to automate next action date, automate the current stage definition, automate who is being assigned a task, so on and so forth. But as painful as it sounds, I would start, at least as you're getting everything set up, doing things manually. Just because as you're honing in on different strategies or how to use your CRM most efficiently, it's really important to understand how it all works before you try to automate things. Because if there's anything that you're still switching up, or if there's any sort of chaos in the system that you have already created, then you'll just be scaling chaos by trying to automate things. And that's when leads start slipping through the cracks. That's when, if you don't have a defined SOP or task list for certain individuals within your company, things can get messy really fast. So that's why I always recommend to people that manual is good as you're starting out, but once you have a consistent system going that's sustainable and everyone is on the same page throughout your team, then you can start automating certain things or make it easier to track, your notes, track the last call date, so on and so forth. So what are some common mistakes to avoid? I see the same mistakes happening over and over with people's CRM systems. First off, it's very vague stage definitions. So while these seem pretty vague, we still have outlined in detail how a certain task is going to happen and what happens after that task is completed and who is doing things, where they're happening, so on and so forth. But more often than not, people kind of just make a CRM pretty simply. And because it's so simple, the execution under each stage is sloppy, right? It's not being done consistently. Speed to lead is an issue. Consistency within the business is an issue. So you want to make sure you're avoiding super vague definitions and tasks for each stage. Additionally, another big issue is ownership of the stages. So when you have a very multifaceted team, maybe with multiple sales reps or multiple people kind of in charge of different areas within your business, oftentimes leads can start to slip through the cracks because there's no clear ownership. And that's why when I'm getting started, I like having defined people to take care of every single stage, because if there's an issue with one of the stage, it'll become increasingly obvious who's in charge of taking care of that issue. So if something is everyone's responsibility, like, oh, we'll all work together on these new leads, then it becomes no one's responsibility at the end of the day, because there's not clear communication around what is happening with this new lead stage. Additionally, you need some time limits. That's why I'm big on speed to lead, especially within 5 minutes of some sort of new lead coming into our pipeline, because deals without deadlines die, right? That's one of the biggest reasons why you should have a CRM set up with these sort of tasks in place. So whenever you need to hop on the phone, you're ready to go with an outlined sort of step-by-step procedure on how to do it. And then finally, your metrics will tell you everything that you need to do within your business. So you want to make sure you're tracking them. Future issues will come up, but they should be easily solved if you're tracking the right KPIs and the right metrics within your business right away. Maybe you're not getting the amount of discovery calls that you'd like. Well, it might be because we're not getting on the phone fast enough with people, right? What sort of things can we do to reduce the speed to lead, or to increase the amount of calls being made and increase the percentage of discovery calls booked? It's all extremely trackable. And if you're tracking it correctly, any problem that you encounter within this lead pipeline process should be fixable. I'm going to end this video off with a challenge for you. If you're new to business, or you're just starting your own business right now and you're trying to figure out how to set up a CRM, or maybe you already have a business with a CRM, but it's extremely messy, what I challenge you to do in the next 24 hours, make sure you just fix it up. Make sure that the stages in your CRM all make sense. Make sure you have a clearly defined who, what, where, when, why, and how for all of the stages within your business. Make sure that the definition of the leads in every stage and the tasks associated with every stage is relevant and being executed consistently. And finally, make sure that you're tracking the correct metrics. So, as always, I'm always happy to help you get started with this whole process. This is going to look extremely different depending on the type of business you're trying to run or create. So feel free to reach out to me on my social medias or comment on this video, and I'll make sure to get you help right away. Cheers.